We are back with you live once again, another Johnny Torch live broadcast. Broadcast number 228 this lovely December evening. Depending on where you are located, may still be the afternoon, may still be the morning, maybe tomorrow morning, who knows. We're bringing you Torch News Roundup number 192 today. And we're starting the show a little bit earlier. I had it scheduled for about 50 minutes from now, but I went for my walk, my daily constitutional, and it is a snowstorm out there. It's a snowstorm of epic proportions, and I didn't want to take the full 45-minute walk like I usually do. And came back home early and figured, let's get the show started earlier. Also, I think Trump's going to be doing a rally, and I'm going to want to catch that too. Okay, so without any further ado, let's see. Got to adjust some stuff here. There we go. Live broadcasting right here before your very eyes, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a pretty big show for you, a very big shoe for you again, once again, ladies and gentlemen. But as usual, we're going to do a little housekeeping. This is, of course, the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on the Johnny Torch program. We come to you every Saturday, at least we try to. As I always say, December is the busiest month of the year for me. A lot of stuff going on. So taking a look at the calendar over here, I can see the schedule is going to change a lot. I am not going to be doing a broadcast next Saturday. It's my sister's birthday, so there's not going to be a live show. I'll probably try to make up for it on the following day, on Sunday. But again, just as a brief heads up, also, I see the day after Christmas lands on a Saturday, I believe. So that's probably another Saturday this month that is not going to have a live stream. So just keep your eyes open. If you follow me on Twitter, or if you don't, check the link in the description below. And you can keep up to date with all my scheduling. And again, it's sometimes I just entirely take December off and just pre-record some videos. Some reviews or something, and try to pepper them in the last couple of weeks of December. That's still a possibility. Maybe review some comics, have a little fun on the side like we like to do sometimes. If you haven't yet, check out The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. The link in the description below to my website, where you can find a free 3-page preview of the latest issue in the saga, The Family Jewels. I had a very nice sweatshirt made with a cover of the Family Jewels on it, and I'm very proud of that. I wear it proudly. As a matter of fact, I've got another one here, another spare. If anyone, I'll do this one-time event. If anyone within the next 24 hours purchases all 4 issues from my website, the 3 graphic novels and the issue, The Family Jewels, I will send you that sweatshirt. It's a male large. So, if that's not going to fit you, I don't know what to say. That's all I've got. But you can take a look on my website if you're curious, and you will find my Zazzle store where you can find these things for purchase. Several of them I've listed. Some of them I just keep for my own, to bring them at conventions, so that they're sort of like rarities that you'll only get from coming to see me at a convention, or if you buy a book from the website. Okay, so while we're talking about that, let's take a look here. Let me share screen, and you can take a look at last week. We did a show which was basically an art stream. I'll let you take a look now at the results of that live stream, that art stream. Here we have the result of one of the panels, colored. This book is taking me forever and a day, I don't mind saying. I've said this before, but it's very detailed. It's very intricate. There's a lot of dialogue that I have to make sure fits in, and the balloons have to be just the right size. To say nothing of the color palette is a lot different than I'm used to. I'm trying to use a lot of effects. If you watched last week's show, I'm trying to use neon coloring and lighting. So this is taking me a little bit longer than usual, but again, I'm very pleased with the results. Thus far, we're only, 6 pages in. We're 6 pages in, and to be honest with you, I'm not even completely done with the pages that I've progressed from. There's a few details that I need to add and go back to, but I'm sort of trying to just get the bulk of the stuff done and then work on details after the fact. I don't know if that's dangerous. I've never done that before. I usually complete a page and move on. But for instance, if I have to go and sort of color in a background character, I've got to look up what he was wearing in the previous issue and so on and so forth. So I'm kind of just focusing on the characters that I know, what the outfits are going to be, such as Bullets Bourbon's disguise here. He's wearing his bad guy disguise, and he and Veronica are going to be doing some sleuthing, I suppose. Sleuthing? And it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, a lot of work has got to go into this book. I am not even nearly done. But I'm shooting for a late spring release. Again, hopefully around May, April at the very earliest, but possibly May before this is all done and ready to go. Let me see if maybe I can let you glimpse some of the other panels here. This is another one we were working on. Bullets is getting the plan ready with Veronica. And if you see the cover of the Family Jewels, you'll see that they're handcuffed, even though that's sort of more of an artistic representation of what happens, because Bullets is in his normal costume at that point. But in the actual story, they're handcuffed while he's in disguise, as you see here. So there you have it. Make sure you check out the link in the description below for the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. You can get our first 3 issues. It's always something, knock on wood, and the 60-pager When the Night Comes. And make sure you get the newest chapter in the upcoming saga, The Family Jewels, which the story arc is named The Family Jewels. And you will be able to get ready for this next issue that is about to launch early next year. Hopefully next year will be a bit more entertaining than this year has been. All right, also, I want to thank everyone out there. I thank every one of my followers on Twitter. I thank every one of my subscribers on YouTube. Without you guys, I mean, what's the point? I've seen a large uptick in subs this year. Very, very grateful. Thanksgiving, to me, it brings it home. You know what I mean? It brings it home. All the gratitude I have, particularly for you guys, all the followers. I've gotten past my record of 2,000 followers on Twitter that I wanted this year. I got past my goal already of 150 subscribers on YouTube this year. I said last year I wanted to get to 100, and this year we picked up another 50, and of course the year isn't over yet. So again, I encourage you, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We're getting a lot more views, we're getting a lot more subs, and I hope to keep you entertained in some small way. We got some interesting stories to cover today, but just a little toot of the horn to thank y'all from the celebratory horn. Okay, so let's move on to the news of the day, or of the week. Again, I don't know how many more of these we're going to have. The news typically slows down at this point in the year. I didn't check for mailbag. I got to look for mailbag. Let me see. Do I have any mailbag? No, I'll check that out. I promise. I'll see if there's any comments. I'll look them up and do them with the next show. I didn't get a chance to do that today. Okay, so with that said, let me pull up my notes here. This is interesting. I don't remember if I covered this because, the Torch News roundups have been spotty lately because there isn't a whole lot of news out. So some weeks when there's only 1 or 2 news stories, I might pass them. I'm not sure. But I did pick up on this where Oscar Isaacs has been cast, or Oscar Isaac, talking too fast, has been cast as Moon Knight. Moon Knight, of course, is the popular Marvel character. A lot of people see him as sort of the Marvel answer to Batman. and this is old news to be sure. I think it was dated late October, but I don't think I really talked about this. This is interesting. Oscar Isaac. I don't know why that's a tongue twister for me for some reason today. But yeah, Golden Globe winner Oscar Isaac is signed on for the lead role in Marvel's upcoming Disney Plus series Moon Knight. He'll portray the one and only Mark Spector, an elite soldier and mercenary who decides to fight crime after he becomes the human avatar of Khonshu, the Egyptian god of the moon. Jeremy Slater has been tapped as showrunner, and with a star in place, Marvel Studios is now shifting their attention to finding a director for the series. A production start date has yet to be determined. Yada, yada, yada. So anyway, again, I might have covered this before, but I just wanted to give a couple of thoughts about it. Oscar Isaac, of course, great actor. I'm very confident in his ability to take on this character. Again, I've said this before. I know that I don't really know a lot about Moon Knight. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about the character, other than he has sort of an erratic backstory where he was a thief and then he was a rich man, a cab driver. He was kind of like this. It kind of reminded me of The Shadow, where he could kind of be anybody, and he had more identities. That I think that was kind of the idea, because a lot of people try to compare him to Batman. I think he's kind of, and they would sometimes play him sort of snarky and, I don't know, irreverent, and then other times they'd play him as being very serious and somber and crusading. I don't know. I think he kind of reminded me, from what I remember of him in the comics, of the Question. Now, that's kind of a bad comparison, because I know the Question is a lot more, well, at least in recent years, they've kind of used him as the conspiracy theorist of at least of DC, of superheroes. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think about Moon Knight and the possibility of this show, which is, I believe, on Disney Plus, right? What do you think about it? Is it going to be exciting? Are you excited for that Moon Knight? Like I said, I've got a clean slate, really, for Moon Knight. I don't know what to expect from it. So in a way, I kind of don't want to, look up the character and see what he's about. That way I'll be able to understand whatever they present maybe a little bit more clearly. All right, this is a story that's been going around for the past week. It is, I don't know, I guess, depending on how you look at it, bad news for the industry. On the other hand, we're finally going to get these movies, though. There's not going to be any more holdback if this is the case. Warner Brothers now is going to roll out a huge slate of films, blockbuster films, for the 2021 season. They're adopting the Wonder Woman 1984 method of releasing the films in theaters and simultaneously on HBO Max, where they will be available for 31 days, according to this article that I have here. Let's see. Let's see. Films that will be distributed in this new theater HBO Max rollout include The Suicide Squad, which is why we have this image up here. The Matrix 4. This is all for next year, right? I didn't even know The Matrix 4 was done. That's like close to being done. Dune, the remake of Dune, of course. I don't know. I'm not really interested in that. I don't know. Godzilla versus Kong. That could be interesting, depending on. Honestly haven't seen any of those more recent Kong or Godzilla movies, so I don't know. Space Jam: A New Legacy. Space Jam, the first movie, I thought was very good. I only seen it once, and it's one of those things I always say, well, let me go back to someday and check it out again. I haven't, so I don't know if it holds up. These other ones, I'm not sure. Little Things, Judas and the Black Messiah. The heck is that all about? Tom and Jerry. I imagine that's going to be is that going to be a CGI movie based on the cartoon? Mortal Kombat. They're bringing that back, I guess. Those Who Wish Me Dead. That sounds like. Is that the title of my autobiography? I don't know. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. aka the Flip Wilson story. For those of you under, I don't know, 35, you're not going to know what that means. Go ask your parents. In the Heights, Reminiscence, Malignant. I don't like the sound of that. Malignant. That's an ugly word. Why would you name your movie Malignant? That's ugh. The Many Saints of Newark, or Newark. King Richard. If that's Shakespeare, maybe I'd like it. I don't know. And Cry Macchio. I guess not to be confused with Ralph Macchio. The Hollywood Reporter is reporting that this decision was not made in conjunction with movie theater owners who are likely to be very upset with this development. Well, yeah, I imagine so, right? You're cutting the legs out from under their business. Why wouldn't they be upset, right? Oh, man. Many theaters are holding on by the skin of their teeth, borrowing large sums of money or raising capital by selling off stock. Let's see. Ann Snardoff, chair and CEO of Warner Media, stated, "We're living in unprecedented times which call for creative solutions, including this new initiative for the Warner Brothers Picture Group. No one wants films back on the big screen more than we do. We know new content is the lifeblood of theatrical exhibition, but we have to balance this with the reality that most theaters in the U.S. will likely operate at reduced capacity throughout 2021. With this unique one-year plan," I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Think about that first, one-year plan. "We can support our partners in exhibition with a steady pipeline of world-class films while also giving moviegoers who may not have access to theaters or who aren't quite ready to go back to the movies the chance to see our amazing 2021 films. We see it as a win-win for film lovers and exhibitors. We're extremely grateful to our filmmaking partners for working with us on this innovative response to these circumstances." All right, so my take on this is, like I said, on the one hand, the studios are not going to rush these films into theaters any other way, because we know, again, I don't want to get too political. I don't want to start going crazy on the Modelo virus, the virus that shall not be named. They're not going to do big money because either the people are scared or the tyrannical governors are so tight-fisted that they're locking down these places so tightly that you can barely I think there's a curfew in like at least half the states now. I know there's one here in Massachusetts. So if you want to see a movie, the latest showing is like 7:30, I think, because it has to be done by 10. Everybody has to be out by 10. And that's crazy because it doesn't really make any difference. COVID is not going to kill you at 10 o'clock any more than it would if it, by being out at 9:30 and going home. So, you know, all these rules and things don't make any sense to begin with. But so on the one hand, I can see how if this is the kind of rules we're going to be operating under, we can't keep just holding back on all these movies and being like, the alternative is, which a lot of people were saying, well, it's just going to go straight to streaming. At least in this instance, you have the opportunity to either go to a movie theater if you're like myself, would rather have that option and you don't mind putting up with the rigmarole of whatever it's going to be, social distance seating and masks and all that baloney. You still have the option of seeing it in the theater on a big screen. That is appealing to me, instead of just putting it straight to streaming or holding off indefinitely like some of these other studios seem to be doing. Like, for instance, they're already saying in this article, I didn't get to that line yet, but apparently Disney is not, you know, at least at this point, as of this broadcast, not putting out a similar arrangement for Black Widow, Eternals, Shang-Chi, and whatever else was supposed to come out this year. Neither has Sony, which also has Venom 2 and Morbius, and the soon-to-be, co-release of Spider-Man 3, the MCU Spider-Man 3. So this, of course, this is kind of interesting. I suppose it's the way to go because, again, we have to live with the reality that we still even know who. We know who won the election. Let's not kid ourselves, but we don't really know the face of what's going to happen next year. I personally think nothing much is going to change, at least for the first 3-4 months. Of course, if Trump gets in, I think you'll see these restrictions start to erode. Obviously, if Biden gets in, it could be quite longer. So, you're giving people without the opportunity to go to a movie theater the opportunity to see the movie. So, I don't know. Now, going back to this last sentence here that I said to remember, this is a 1-year plan. Now, they're at least putting up the pretense that they don't want to keep doing this. The problem with it being a 1-year plan, I mean, I admire that they're saying it's a 1-year plan, that this is not, quote unquote, the new normal. But you have to understand, movie theaters might not be there next year. You know what I mean? They might not be there the year after 2021, depending on how well people turn out to support their local theaters. It's a crapshoot right now. Nobody knows, So it's a little difficult for them to establish whether this is the beginning of the end for theaters, or if this, and consequently, if this is the beginning of the quote unquote new normal for seeing movies on the big screen. I mean, is it going to be something like, because I remember we talked about this about, 2 years ago, when it was, I think, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were talking about how eventually, and this does seem kind of prophetic, but eventually going to the movies was going to be so expensive, it was going to be like going to a concert. I mean, you see, I don't know. I'm kind of behind the times. Let's say you go see Bare Naked Ladies at concert or something, and it's a one-time event. There might be 2 or 3 shows. Who knows? I don't know. But you're paying for a once in a lifetime event, and it's kind of looking like that's almost what it's going to be like going to the movies. They're going to have to charge you more in order to keep the lights on, keep the heat on, keep the screens running, and at the same time, it's going to be very shorter run times. They're already saying 31 days, I think. I mean, a blockbuster movie doesn't run for 31 days. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you see this? Is this a plus? Is this a negative? Is this good for the industry, or is it very bad? Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, so as we move along here, moving right along. All right, we got some images of the new Hawkeye series starring Jeremy Renner and the newly confirmed, second here. All right, there we go. It's taking me a few minutes to find the images for you. There we go. All right, so this is the newly confirmed actress. Why don't I have it here in the notes? Ah, man. Haley Stanfield. I didn't have it in the notes, but I had to recall her name. Hey, what do you want from me? I'm old. But I just know her as the Bumblebee girl. I didn't, I don't know what she's done acting-wise. I just remember her from the trailers for Bumblebee. So apparently they're confirming it through these images that she is, in fact, going to play the Hawkeye, what do you call her? Successor, I guess. Let's see. The dog here, she's got a dog, Lucky the pizza dog. Barton's 4-legged friend was actually introduced during Matt Fraction's run as the Tracksuit Mafia's attack dog, Arrow, before turning against his masters by helping Hawkeye out of a jam. He lost the use of his left eye for his efforts, and Clint decided to return the favor by adopting the very good boy under the new name Lucky. That's interesting. Variety reports that a big amount of names have been added to the series coming to Disney+. Oscar-nominated actress Vera Farmiga is set to take on the role of Eleanor Bishop, the mother of Haley Stanfield's Kate Bishop. Oh, they're the names that I was looking for right there. Haley Stanfield playing Kate Bishop. Okay, there you go. Fra Free, meanwhile, is set to play Kazi, aka Kazimierz Kazimierzek, a villain better known to comic book fans as Clown. Tony Dalton has been cast as Jack Dunesque, a new take on Jacques Dunesque the Swordsman. He's Clint Barker's mentor in the comic books. Oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe they're gonna, do like a callback to his origin. That would be cool. This likely means we're getting some flashbacks. Newcomer Aliqua Cox is playing Maya Lopez, Echo, and Hawkeye will mark her first major on-screen role. What does that mean? Playing her father, William Lopez, is Zahn McLaren. Finally, confirming recent rumors is the news that Black Widow star Florence Pugh will be reprising her role as Yelena Belova, likely cementing her as the MCU's new Black Widow. Kevin Feige had said that these shows would be essential viewing, and he clearly wasn't lying. Yeah, when they talked about a Hawkeye TV series, I was like, why not? I mean, I like Jeremy Renner. I like the character. I wouldn't mind sitting there for, whatever it is, a 6-episode run or whatever. I don't really care too much about Kate Bishop. I don't really even know the character because I'm not really into the new version of Marvel, for lack of better terms, where, the Jane Foster Thor, the Amadeus Cho Hulk, and all that stuff. They basically just pushed their characters aside and gave their identities, like legacy characters, to other personas. I didn't care for any of that stuff. But I don't know, I didn't want to see the end of Jeremy Renner's reign as Hawkeye, but I suppose if all the rest of the original Avengers are pretty much going by the wayside, I suppose he's not going to be any different. He's going to hand over the bow to the next generation. That only leaves Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. Man, do we really need any more Mark Ruffalo Hulk? I don't know. And what else? That leaves Rhodey from War Machine. I don't know. I don't know if that's... are they going to do anything with him? But let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited about the potential Hawkeye series that will carry on the adventures of Hawkeye? I'd like to see some of that, of his past, like they said, if it's a flashback or if it's, at least a story tied to him, because we haven't done any stories really with Hawkeye that were from the comics. They did that whole thing with him having kids and this and that. I mean, so we kind of got into his life, his personal story, but it wasn't anything I've really seen from the comics. I remember the swordsman stories and so forth. That was a little more in my line. All right, let's talk next about David Ramsey is getting a plum role, apparently, in next season's Arrowverse shows. Deadline reveals that David Ramsey has signed up to direct 5 episodes. Direct now. He's directing these too. I think he's probably going to star in them as well as direct them, but we don't know that, I suppose. To direct 5 episodes of the CW's DC shows, including Superman and Lois, Supergirl, The Flash, Batwoman, and Legends of Tomorrow. Now, I like that they got some kind of interconnectivity there. I am thinking that maybe this is going to be... Let me put it this way. I hope this is going to be the origin. This is going to be a crossover. That's going to be the origin story of the John Stewart Green Lantern. I'd really like to see that because I really like Dave Ramsey. I think he paid his dues. He deserves to be... I mean, he was Spartan, but I mean, he deserves to be the spotlight in a show, the center of attention. And what better way to do that than to be with the Green Lantern Corps? Now, this was something that was a little... I admit this was a little touch and go because I normally don't like retroactively, sort of retrofitting an actor, or I should say a character, into another role. Like, for instance, this was John Diggle. It has nothing really to do with John Stewart from the comics. The only thing I think is that they both share a military background. So kind of to try to retroactively fit John Diggle into the role of Jon Stewart, I was kind of concerned with. But again, I honestly, again, don't tell anybody. I always said I wasn't a huge fan of Jon Stewart, the character, because I just never felt that he was charismatic enough. Now, see, in this case, David Ramsey is a very charismatic actor. And, you know, if you have to sort of finagle the French fries there in order to, what does that mean? Finagle the French fries. If you have to finagle the French fries to get David Ramsey to portray Jon Stewart, I say go for it. You know, I could be wrong as a purist, but I say go for it. You know, the Arrowverse isn't exactly replete with continuity from the comics, so I don't know. I don't think it's really going to be an issue. He's also set to guest star in them, taking on the role of Arrow fan favorite John Diggle / Spartan. So yeah, he will be acting in the same ones he's directing. Here is where things get interesting, though. The trade notes that in Legends of Tomorrow, the actor will be taking on a mystery role, which is being kept under wraps. Now, that's kind of interesting because does this mean that maybe he will be playing Jon Stewart from a parallel world or something? Because you know, the John Wesley ship Flash was talking about, you know, he knew a Jon Stewart Green Lantern. And is it possible they want to try to maybe bring David Ramsey out as Jon Stewart by taking him from another world or something? I don't know. That's kind of curious. Or he could be just playing some, you know, some other character entirely. I was trying to think. I'm not really well versed in the Green Lantern lore, so I'm trying to think, like, would he play, like, I don't know, some doppelganger or something that exists for Jon Stewart? I don't know. Could we finally see him make that long-awaited transformation into Green Lantern? The way things ended for him and Arrow pointed to that being the case, while the series previously hinted that he is in fact Jon Stewart. Over the course of these 5 episodes, it would definitely make sense for Diggle to head down that heroic path and eventually become a Green Lantern. Ramsey had previously directed an episode of Arrow in 2018 and also helmed the final season's 2nd installment. With that in mind, all these shows are clearly going to be in safe hands. Let's see. Ramsey said, I remain in awe of the imprint these shows have had on television. I've been blessed for the better part of a decade to be part of them both in front of and behind the camera. To say I'm excited beyond belief to return to the Bertolani-verse would be an understatement. I can't wait to continue telling these stories. So like I said, I'm hoping that this is going to be, when they talk about all this, it will be the Crisis on Infinite Earths, you know, crossover event of this year. And that it'll be like the origin of Jon Stewart. And again, hopefully, this is something that might spin off into his own series. It's tough on the CW because you kind of wonder if they have the budget for it. But to be honest with you, they're, you know, I've said this before, even if the effects are not, you know, big screen worthy, we're talking about a television series. I think you could do a reasonable, I mean, they do with Stargirl, they do with The Flash, they do a reasonably good job of showing these effects. But my concern is if the effects budget is too high, we'll have a situation like what happened on Legends of Tomorrow, where they eventually had to like bump out all the superheroes that had special effects requirements that required a budget of, you know, big money. Let's put it that way. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments below. David Ramsey about to descend upon the, he calls it the Bertolani-verse. I call it the Arrowverse. Some people don't like to call it the CW verse, but yeah, it's kind of applicable. All right, so we move on here to now we are going to talk about once again, I should have like a theme song or something. Every week we talk about the cancellation of another star for displaying independent thought. And this week we induct into the ranks the lovely Letitia Wright. Okay, so let me bring up the story here. Let's see. Now, Letitia Wright, as you know, played Shuri in The Black Panther. A lot of people speculating, of course, that she is going to actually become the Black Panther now with the untimely passing of Chadwick Boseman, who passed away of cancer a couple of months ago. Very sad situation, but they're still going to go ahead with the movie. Nobody really knows, though, exactly what form this is going to take going forward. I think they've kind of debunked the idea that Boseman will be recreated as a CGI character for like a death scene, and that it's probably just, no matter which way you handle it, it's not gonna do justice. I mean, you do a CGI character and you put him in the movie just to die. That's always a recipe for disaster. When you put a character in a movie just to die, it never comes off well. So I don't think that was a good idea to do. But also, when you have sort of the picking up 6 months later, the 6 months later thing, it's like, couldn't you show us what happened 6 months ago? All right, Black Panther T'Challa died, and, there's a story there I'd like to see. I don't know. All right, but without going down a rabbit trail there and talking about Black Panther 2, Letitia Wright took to Twitter to criticize, again, the uncriticizable COVID-19. And she came under fire for posting a link to a YouTube video with presenter Tommy Aromi. I may be butchering that name, and I probably am. Where they have a monologue about the COVID-19 pandemic, which starts with, and she, I'm trying to find the tweet. The tweet says, "I don't understand vaccines medically, but I've always been a little bit of a skeptic of them." So anyway, because she had the temerity to portray a independent thought and to suggest that maybe vaccines aren't necessarily always good, maybe you shouldn't just run out and get a vaccine just because, they're giving you panic over a virus with a 99.95% recoverability rate. She got lambasted on Twitter, and she ended up coming back with the tweet here. It says, if you don't conform to popular opinions, but ask questions and think for yourself, you get canceled. And then a laughing emoji. And of course, I like Letitia Wright. She's a very class individual. I thought she stole the show in the Black Panther. So, I like her. I stand by her. I support her. Again, we were just talking the other week about Gina Carano, how she has the temerity to betray independent thought as well, and they're trying to get her fired. Now, I don't think they're going to get Letitia Wright fired. Obviously, there's there's racial considerations at play here, and you don't want to cancel a black woman unless, of course, they betray being a conservative. Here, she's just betraying concerns about taking a vaccine. Now, me, like I've said, I am mostly anti-vax. Now, I think you should be allowed to take it if you want. I don't think you should be prevented. I personally don't want vaccines and foreign substances put in my body to try to give me a quick fix of immunity when I could very easily use my own immunity to build up a thing. I think vaccines, honestly, are a thing of the past. I think maybe they were important once upon a time when smallpox ravaged the land, and when, I don't know, what was the last thing? Tuberculosis or something. When there was things that seemed like it was impossible to get away from. Of course, CV-19 is not something that's impossible to get away from. There's, as I said, a 99.95% recovery rate. This is not something I really need concern myself with. But if you are concerned, or maybe if you fall into the danger area there, if you're over 70 and or have existing pre-existing conditions, then maybe want to consider it. Of course, there is, I think, a 94% survivability rate, recovery rate, if you're over 70. So, again, the odds are pretty much with you. She then followed up with one more tweet saying, "My intention was not to hurt anyone. My only intention of posting the video was it raised my concerns with what the vaccine contains and what we are putting into our bodies." Again, very, very smart woman. That is something we should concern ourselves with. There are a lot of stories. I mean, you can't just broad brush people who are anti-vax as being flat earthers or something. I mean, you have to remember there's been cases of paralysis, mental disability. These things are not just, anecdotal. These are things that have been documented, have been side effects. So it is worth having the conversation over. Instead, they are, again, rushing to shut her up. And I think that's wrong. And I will come to her defense every time, or anybody's defense, actually, that will do that. Now, again, like I said, the pandemonium, so to speak, sort of backed down because there's only so much you can do trying to cancel a lovely young black lady like Letitia. But there, also were the rumblings of, did Marvel Studios step in and tell her, hey, back off. We don't want to ruffle the feathers. We, don't argue against that which must not be named. Was there outside pressure put on her to do this? And then I've seen also on Twitter and stuff excuses like, well, she's a black woman. She's allowed to, criticize the... come on, don't play the race card. Everybody has the right and should be allowed to criticize anything. That's what this country is about, is the wonderful gift of freedom of speech. She has as much right to criticize putting foreign substances in our bodies and the potential side effects as anybody. You know what I mean? I don't cotton to those kind of sort of snide little, well, she has the right to make these claims. After all, her people suffered. Well, we all suffered. We all suffer. And, we all have a right to voice our opinions and our consternation with the way that the world is handling this quote-unquote crisis. And I'll leave it at that, but let me know what you think about Letitia's stance here, what she has to say about vaccines, and how she subsequently is, or nearly was, canceled. All right, let's go to the sad in memoriam section here. Just seems like a couple of weeks ago we did some in memoriam segments, of course, for the great Sean Connery, the great Alex Trebek, and today, I hate when I can't find the cursor. For some reason, it's taking me 20 minutes to find the cursor. There we go. Today, we have another double memoriam. The first one, I heard about this just today. Boy, is this working slow? I don't understand it. But I was sad to hear the passing of David L. Lander, who fans of a certain age of television, the golden age of television, or this was probably more considered the bronze age of television, if we go by the sort of comic book designation. The bronze age is sort of mid-70s to like 1990. But David L. Lander played Squiggy, the part of the comedy team from Laverne and Shirley's Lenny and Squiggy. Michael McKean, of course, played Lenny, and David L. Lander played Squiggy. And he always had that, that comical look about him alone, it was worth the price of admission. He had the little curl, he had the leather jacket and the jeans going on. It was taking place in the 50s, and so he was supposed to be like a greaser wannabe. Very, very funny guy, and I'd love to see it's like a part of my childhood. Some of my earliest memories were of watching Laverne and Shirley as a toddler when it was on, like very late 70s, very early 80s. And I saw the reruns after that. So, again, another part of my childhood, unfortunately, we're bidding farewell to. Lander, I believe, went on to do some animated voices for certain things. The ones that I remember was he was in the Who Framed Roger Rabbit film as one of the Weasels. He also played John Arbuckle's brother, I think, in the Garfield cartoons. He wasn't in many of them, but I think he was in the Christmas special or something. He had that great, unique voice. Hello, Levine. Hello, Shile. And he died of complications related to multiple sclerosis at the age of 73. He battled multiple sclerosis, sadly, for 37 years and only went public with it in 1999 after having the disease for 15 years. He worked closely with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, speaking out about his experience at related conferences. The characters of Lenny and Squiggy were developed by longtime friends and collaborators McKean and Lander while they were students at Carnegie Mellon University. So again, yeah, they were quite a team. They were quite a pair. Lenny and Squiggy, McKean and Lander. A lot of great memories, a lot of funny scenes they did together. And again, I'm very saddened at his passing. So Godspeed, Squiggy, and rest in peace, my friend. All right, so we bid a fond farewell to David L. Lander. And unfortunately, we have another, very famous personality here that we had to bid farewell to this past week. Of course, the legendary David Prowse, the Darth Vader actor, and he would always sign his autographs, David Prowse is Darth Vader. And it's sad because there was something of a contentious relationship, I think, between Prowse and Lucas. Prowse, of course, was not an actor per se. He was a bodybuilding champion. And I think it really disappointed him that Lucas did not choose to have him deliver the dialogue. And if you see some of the behind-the-scenes clips where they have him talking, because he actually delivered the lines before, of course, the legendary James Earl Jones came in to dub over the voice. But, of course, it just didn't sound right. It didn't sound, his voice was pitched too high for the character and so on and so forth. So it's understandable why he didn't get the vocal aspect of the character, but he was Darth Vader, and there is nothing that anybody could say to take that away from him. This picture here of him is from, I believe, again, I'm not too sure, the late 90s, when he was called back to portray Vader along with, I think, James Earl Jones doing the voice for a VCR game. Remember those days in the 90s when we had VCR board games? Yeah, I had that game too. It was fun to watch, new footage of Vader. And I believe it was the last time he was in costume. He was also unfortunately plagued with many, physical ailments with, I believe he had hip surgery and several surgeries. Let me see some of the roles he provided. He was arguably more famous in Britain for playing the Green Cross Code Man. They did a lot of public ads, so to speak, of the Green Cross Code Man, which is basically, I think, what they called the traffic signals over there. And he would educate kids. I've seen some of these clips on YouTube. You can check them out, where, he educated kids on how to cross the street. And, it was a cute little thing for the 6-year-olds in the audience to learn when to cross the street and when not to. He was the face for British road safety for more than a decade and earning an MBE for his efforts. Over the course of his 50-year career, he also appeared in the likes of Casino Royale, 1967, Horror of Frankenstein, where I believe he actually played the monster. I've got to look that up, but yeah, he actually was in alongside Peter Cushing, because I remember that in an interview with Peter Cushing, he said, he had just finished playing Dr. Frankenstein to his Frankenstein monster, and here he was once again being his lackey, so to speak. He also appeared in The Saint, Space 1999, Doctor Who, and A Clockwork Orange. His agent, Thomas Boington, said, though famous for playing many monsters, for myself and for all who knew Dave and worked with him, he was a hero in our lives. George Lucas shared his tribute to the late actor via StarWars.com, saying David brought a physicality to Darth Vader that was essential for the character. He made Vader leap off the page and onto the big screen with an imposing stature and movement performance to match the intensity and undercurrent of Vader's presence. David was up for anything and contributed to the success of what would become a memorable, tragic figure. May he rest in peace. Let's see. Yeah, the article goes on to talk about the contention between them. Also was that Prowse didn't like also that Lucas did not tell him the actual dialogue when they did The Empire Strikes Back. Prowse was reading from the script, which allegedly, at least according to Mark Hamill, I think the dialogue was, Obi-Wan killed your father. And he was delivering this to Mark Hamill, and Mark Hamill, of course, is acting and responding with no, and only Irvin Kershner, George Lucas, and Mark Hamill knew that the dubbed-in line eventually by James Earl Jones was going to be, I am your father, the biggest shock twist in screen history. And I think he was very hurt that they didn't let him in on that secret. But it might have been kind of fortuitous that they didn't, because I think they later also was a problem with Prowse, I think, letting the cat out of the bag that Vader was going to die in Return of the Jedi and that he was going to be unmasked, because he was upset with the fact that he didn't get to play Anakin under the mask. And again, this is understandable because he really wasn't an actor per se, and to get that performance, I think they kind of also rightly wanted to go with another actor once he takes the mask off. But I was very happy for him to learn that they did a documentary, I seen this about a year ago, where they actually refilmed the ending sequence where Luke takes the helmet off, with another actor, of course, not Mark Hamill. But you could ostensibly cut back and forth from Return of the Jedi and actually place him in there if you had this footage, but they weren't allowed to show the footage of what he would have done. And it was sort of like a dream come true for him, where he actually played the death of Darth Vader. Also, it was later reported that Lucas mostly chose to use stuntman Bob Anderson in Return of the Jedi for most of the throne room scenes. I think, for most of the end of Jedi, they used the stuntman. Again, this is also true, sad but true, but Bob Anderson also played Darth Vader about as much as Prowse and James Earl Jones, because all those lightsaber fights and action scenes for, Empire and Jedi at least, were Bob Anderson. So a lot of the role goes to him. But, because I just want to be fair, because James Earl Jones, of course, is also very modest in his approach to it. He calls himself a special effect. And again, of course, he was much more than just that. But at the same time, we can't negate how important Prowse was to this role. His presence is what embodied Darth Vader. And again, there was controversy as well in Revenge of the Sith when there was, I don't know, literally 5 minutes of Vader on screen. And, you know, Prowse was hoping to get the call the way James Earl Jones did to reprise the role one last time. I remember being kind of on Hayden's side on this, though, because I kind of felt like if you've played Anakin for 2 movies and you have the opportunity to wear the costume for 5 minutes and you are Anakin now in the Vader costume, you kind of are owed that. You know what I mean? So I didn't really feel like they were mistreating Prowse by not offering him the role back in Revenge of the Sith, the 5-minute role, because it kind of felt like it was owed to Christensen. But again, you know, we can't take anything away from David Prowse. And again, you know, another part of my childhood that it's sad to see go. And again, I wish that there wasn't such contentious relationship between he and Lucasfilm. They might have put him into something else, as they brought Jeremy Bulloch back for several roles, I think, throughout the trilogy, even though he wasn't playing Boba Fett anymore. So it would have been nice to see him maybe show up on screen and actually have a, you know, a considerable speaking part, even if just like as a cameo or a very minor character. But yes, that's it. The Force will be with him always. Rest in peace, David Prowse. And again, very sad. Another cast member of Star Wars has left us. It's starting to be a pretty rough run. David Prowse, Carrie Fisher, Peter Mayhew, of course Kenny Baker a little bit before that, and the same, you know, with David L. Lander, Penny Marshall passing on just about a year ago, I think, before him. So again, it's getting to that point that unfortunately we're losing a lot of our childhood favorites. But I want to thank you once again for joining us here. Another hour down, another week in the books in the Johnny Torch program, the Johnny Torch broadcast live. The only way to spend your Saturday here with us. And we thank you. God love you for being there. I say it every time. We got all the decorations up. We got the tree up now. Oh, it's going to be great. Don't worry about anything. Pray about everything. And, you know, just enjoy the Christmas season, man. This is the best time of the year. You know, the most wonderful time of the year. It's true. Just let your spirit rejoice. Rejoice in the good things God has given you, the wonderful things Jesus has done for us. You know, it's so easy to become, you know, fed up with the way the world is around us. But, you know, God's always there for us. Jesus is the way. And, you know, it's just such a wonderful, magnificent time of year, magnificent season. So with those words, until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.